Hey, how's it going, friends? Welcome to this new video of the channel in which we will talk about the new Poco F6, which came out quite recently and which we bought on AliExpress at an incredible price. We will talk about it and put it to the test, as always, of many of its features. Like its Snapdragon 8S of Generation 3, which carries as its processor its 67-inch quad high-definition organic light-emitting diode screen at 120 Hz. And much more that we are going to see today. So if you want to know it, you already know what you have to do. Join me in this video. Is this Tech Crown? Today we are going to talk a brand that every time I try one of their devices, and lately I'm testing quite a few, I'm liking more and more. Why? Because they bring cutting-edge technology, quite good material quality, devices that respond very well and with very good performance. They are mid-range devices with an incredible price. Without further delay, we continue with the video and let's see what this Poco F6 brings inside the box. Here we have a little black box in the Poco line with yellow letters and the inner box also in yellow. Let's open the package. As I mentioned, model and brand. On the top, quite elegant black as always, like all the boxes. Brand label, model and the Google family. Upon opening, we already find here at the top, as always, the little box, where we will find the pick for the slot, warranty and information papers. And a little case also, as you can see, a simple normal case with the brand's engraving here. And we're going to show up here. The phone, the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3, the 120G active matrix organic light emitting diode screen, 90W of turbocharging and 50 megapixels of rear camera. Here you can see a total black with these camera modules which do stand out on the back. If we go to the bottom, we will also find the 90W charger, super fast and super powerful charger. And the power cable that consists of a USB Type-A tip and a USB Type-C tip. And well, we turn on the phone to start installing it, and this is what would come to us. In the box, the case with the papers, the phone, charger and cable, and the little box in general, this would be absolutely everything. We've already unboxed the device. Did you see what was inside? And we start, as always, talking about its dimensions, its composition, its materials and its design. To start, I tell you the size that this Poco F6 would have, and it would have a height of 160.5 millimeters by a width of 74.4 millimeters and a thickness of 7.8 millimeters. It doesn't even reach a centimeter. It would come finished in plastic materials, both on the back and on its edges, and in this case in black color. It is also available in their store in green and in gray, a titanium gray they have released, which, well, won't be titanium. Obviously is a phone that costs less than 400 euros, but it will also offer us that different aesthetic. Regarding the device's design, they have sacrificed the jack input that the EFE5 had and have directly moved it to USB-C. On the top edge, we will have a speaker. We will have the infrared sensor to also control our devices, such as the television, the air conditioning, etc. And the top microphone. On the right edge, there's the volume up and down button and the lock and unlock button. On the bottom edge, there are perforations where the lower speaker, the USB-C, the microphone, and the slot for the dual subscriber identity module are located. And on the left edge, we won't find anything because it's completely smooth. As you can see, we have stereo speakers at the bottom and top. Well, that's actually quite good. On the back side, we have a completely smooth black color, which is the entire back, and we find ourselves at the top to the left. The two camera modules, the main camera, the top camera of 50 megapixels with Sony IMX188 sensor with an f1.6 maximum aperture and 50 megapixels of resolution, taking photos up to 8K and videos in 4K at 60 frames. And at the bottom we find the wide-angle camera, which in this case we would have a slightly more efficient camera, which would come with a 0.6 aperture. It's a fairly wide angle, but it's not as wide as other devices we've seen that only have 8 megapixels. Capable of recording at 1080 at 30 frames per second. The truth is, they could have put more effort into implementing this secondary wide-angle camera. And then we would have here the ring, which is a quite powerful light ring. I turn it on for you to see it. From here, you can appreciate the light ring strength, the rear flashlight, and its aesthetics. A small triangle at the top right displays the POCO brand, and an engraving provides further information. 50 megapixels optical image stabilization, as they carry digital stabilizers for the camera movement and nothing more. A pretty nice, quite soft black. The fingers don't leave much mark. It's not as dirty as other devices, but this would be in terms of material composition and design. Moving on to the next point, as usual, it concerns the screen. We are talking about having a 6.67-inch organic light-emitting diode quad high-definition screen, which will give us a maximum refresh rate of 120 Hz, which will have a resolution of 2,712 pixels by 1,220 pixels, an aspect ratio of 29, and a density of 446 pixels per inch, thus having an incredible resolution with very vivid colors, a contrast ratio of 5 million to 1. It has HDR10, plus it features Dolby Vision, and it also has the DCI-P3 range installed. So that we have real vibrant colors and a good dynamic range between blacks and whites, very pure blacks and quite bright whites. It features a 12-bit panel and built-in Gorilla Glass Victus for scratches. Apart from having an Ingress Protection 64 certification for splash resistance, better than the Ingress Protection 53 that the previous device had. Obviously, on the screen, at the top, in the center, we find the 20 megapixel front camera, and we have a quite reduced frame, more reduced than the previous model. And we will have a multi-touch capacitive screen. And it responds super well when working with it, as we have been testing in different aspects. You have already seen that it is a screen that looks really good. It has a lot of brightness, as it has 2,400 nits. And that makes me, for example, when I have been with it outdoors. With direct sunlight, it also looks quite bright. It's not like the Pro, because the Pro does indeed have a bit more brightness, a bit more contrast when it has direct sunlight, but it looks very, very, very good. And the touch response capability would be 480 Hz, incredible for this mid-range phone. If we move on to talk about the device's sound, it is that it is a real wonder, as it comes with high-res Dolby Atmos stereo speakers and 4 microphones. We've conducted the usual small test with a little song, as always. We leave you here so that you can listen for yourselves through, of course, my microphone. How does this phone sound? Of course, a phone like this has to operate with a brain. And I have the 8 gigabytes RAM version that suits me, which is available in 8+4. It can go up to 12 gigabytes of RAM, but we will also have another version of 12 gigabytes of RAM. I have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, but we will also have another version with 512 gigabytes of internal storage. We have done a performance test, as it has a 3rd generation Snapdragon 8S processor with a clock frequency of up to 3 GHz with 8 cores and 4 nanometers distance between cores. All this and complemented with Adreno graphics. 735 makes us have a quite powerful set. And that we have had in benchmark a sample of 1,490,821 points. Not bad for being a mid-range, and that moves all applications incredibly fast. And the same, we will leave you some game tests I've been using, such as Call of Duty, Asphalt, and Marvel fighting games. So you can see how quickly it responds and how well it moves at a high frame rate. Obviously, the limitation of the 50 of my camera will be a reality. But it goes spectacularly well, working on high graphics thanks to its game turbo that comes to be able to get more performance out of the microprocessor. Have you seen how it moves super fast, the set of applications? How it moves between applications as well, and the video games in an exquisite way. But there is a small drawback to point out. And it is true that I have noticed that it heats up a little bit specifically, unlike other models from Poco. I have noticed that it gets a bit hotter, and it is true that it reaches 11% more temperature than normal. And if a phone has to be between 33 to 36 degrees, this one has reached up to 41 to 42 degrees. Temperature from the device's emission. You don't burn your hands, but it's something normal when I'm playing video games with normal applications. Nothing. And as I've talked to you before about these cameras, we're going to leave some samples here so you can see both day and night. And in different shooting modes, as you can see the front and rear camera, day and night, in selfie mode, taking 50 pixel photos or recording at a maximum resolution of 4000 at 60 frames. Front camera of this Poco F6 daytime conditions. Here I am against the light. I'm gonna turn around so you can see the change in light. The sun is quite strong, but this would be 1080 at 60 frames per second. In this front camera, as you can see, it stabilizes very well light change here in the shade. And it seems that the ISO and the dynamic range behave quite well along with the focus. And this would be the same front camera of the Poco F6, but in this case in 1080 at 30 frames per second. Here is a sample of how this Poco F6 stabilizes and sounds. Rear camera of this Poco F6. Daytime conditions, same scenario as yesterday. In this case we have in shadow. But so you can see how this Poco F6 looks in daytime conditions. Rear camera of this Poco F6 in daytime conditions, same scenario, 4K, 60 frames per second. This is how this Poco F6 looks and sounds. A bit of zoom now in daytime conditions, so you can see the difference with the night. And this would be the wide angle camera of this Poco F6, rear at 0.6. But 1080 at 30 frames per second, which is the maximum it allows. Here you can observe the focus change. Let's see how this phone focuses. It seems that it controls the focus quite well. We go out and we come in. Front camera of the Poco F6 at night, arm fully extended. This demonstrates its stabilization, audio and visual quality. I move a little bit. 1080 at 30 frames per second, and this is the front camera, but now with 60 frames per second, more frames, less time to expose. This is how this front camera looks and sounds from this Poco F6 at night. Rear camera with the 0:6 wide angle at a maximum of 1080 at 30 frames per second. The rear camera of the Poco F6 with the 1:1 with the natural camera at 4060 frames per second. And of course, to finish talking about its battery, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, it comes with a 90W charger, which has charged my phone relatively quickly. You can see that I have been using it. I have been left with a battery of 15% or so at the end of the day of working with it, and in a matter of an hour, my phone has completely charged up to 100%. A 5000 mAh battery that will guarantee us to have the phone working all day and that we do not run out of battery in the middle of the day. Or working in a more normal way, without asking so much at the level of video games. Like a standard 5000 mAh phone in the market, it has a battery capacity of almost 2 days. Then, also at the connection level, we will have near-field communication to be able to pay with contact with the mobile. We will have a Bluetooth 5.4 and a Wi-Fi 6 to be able to have stable connections. Of course, the 5G, which also supports its dual subscriber identity module and nothing else at the component level. Now, to talk to you about my personal perception of what I have seen, the issue of the lack of the wide-angle camera, which is something I highlighted to you before at the beginning, the issue of brightness, that outdoors it looks very good, but it's a bit limited. Compared to other devices of the brand that we have tested, it does not have wireless charging. Well, you can't really ask for it in a mid-range phone, and overall, the phone. Well, I quite like bringing out the good in it, which would be its screen, which is incredibly good, its processor that makes everything run really smooth, and its fast charging, that we have a very functional phone. And also, of course, the lightness, as it is a phone that weighs only 180 grams. It's a phone that feels firm in the hand, but at the same time light and compact. We will also leave you the purchase link for this Poco F6 on AliExpress, so you can also take advantage of the offer. And you know, stop by there, take a little look. Write me in the comments what you have bought on AliExpress and what you thought. Of course, this phone that we have analyzed today. Of course, I would like to read all of you and we will answer your doubts or your opinions. As always, give a like if you like this type of content. You help us a lot to continue doing reviews of different products. Activate the notification bell if you still don't have it so you don't miss any of the videos. And of course, if you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now and join us in the next Tech Ground episode. Thanks for being here. See